Okay, I want you to do something for me. If you can. I mean, if you're not driving or something, just close your eyes for a second.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I want to take you somewhere. Imagine you're standing right in the middle of a huge ancient forest. It's deep in the night. The air is cold. It's got that heavy, sharp smell of pine and wet dirt.
Yeah, that primal forest smell.
Exactly. It feels lonely, but in a good way. You can hear the wind way up in the canopy, that kind of low whoosh, almost like the ocean is floating up in the sky.
It sounds peaceful, almost
Yeah.
meditative,
It does start that way. It feels like a total sanctuary. But then you feel it. The whole atmosphere just shifts.
Yeah.
The pressure drops. You get that static feeling on your skin. A storm is rolling in, and it's not a gentle one. This thing is violent. And then, bam, a bolt of lightning just tears the sky open, all white and hot, and it hits this old, dead tree maybe 100 yards away from you.
And it catches instantly, I'm guessing.
Instantly. The whole forest just lights up with this terrifying orange glow. And this is where we need to zoom in. In all that chaos, the smoke, the sparks, the cracking timber, a huge branch snaps.
Oh, no.
It crashes down, and it pins a fawn to the forest floor.
Ah, this is it. This is the philosopher William Rowe's thought experiment, his nightmare scenario.
This is the one. The fawn is completely trapped. The fire's closing in. It's terrified. You can just picture it thrashing against this heavy branch, its eyes wide, just panting in sheer panic.
And the flames reach it.
The flames reach it.
Yeah.
But, and this is the part that just twists your gut, this is what Rowe forces you to look at, it doesn't die quickly.
No, he's very specific about
He is. He describes this lingering, agonizing death. The fawn just lies there, burned, suffering for days in the ashes before it finally succumbs.
And here's the absolute kicker, the detail that makes the whole argument work.
Go on.
No one sees it.
Right. Not a single human is there to witness it. A frantic mother dew doesn't learn some lesson about lightning. No nature photographer gets some tragic photo that inspires a movement. It happens in the dark.
Alone.
And it is, for all intents and purposes, pointless.
And after days of this agony, the silence just returns to the forest.
The silence returns. So here it is. Here is the question that has kept theologians and philosophers, and let's be honest, probably just regular people up at 3 in the morning for centuries.
Well,
It's a question that Rowe weaponized so well.
why?
Why? If there is a creator, a being that we define as all-knowing, all-powerful, and crucially, all-good, why does that specific moment of suffering exist?
It's a devastating question. It really is. Because if he's there, well, he hears the fawn's cries. If
Yeah.
he's all-powerful, he could, snap his metaphysical fingers and put out the fire, lit
The
them.
branch, or just let the animal die instantly, spare it the days of agony. It seems like the bare minimum.
But he doesn't. The suffering plays out. The fawn burns. And if you take that one fawn and you multiply it by the millions of years of life on this planet, all the predation, the diseases, the source material for today calls it countless sorrows in the shadows, you just slam into this massive philosophical wall.
And this is it. This is the problem of evil. For so many people, this is the end of the line for faith. It's the atheist's trump card.
You could call it the empiricist case.
Yep.
It's just looking at the raw data, the overwhelming data of suffering, and concluding that the hypothesis of good God just doesn't fit.
But today we're doing something different. We are not just going to sit in that burning forest and, feel paralyzed by the fawn's pain. We're going to take that exact scenario, that agony, and we're going to run it through a completely different operating system.
I like that, a different OS.
We're diving deep into the book The Quran and Atheism by J.R. Ahmed. Specifically, we're looking at an excerpt called The Crucible of Being.
And I have to say, the perspective in this work is bracing. It's not trying to comfort you with, platitudes or easy answers. It doesn't really appeal to emotion at all.
No, it's all about structure. It's like it wants to shift the entire conversation from why does this hurt so much to how is the machine actually built?
And we're going to be talking about a concept called sovereign intelligence.
We're also going to get into a term, adil, which means divine justice, and a theory that we're going to frame as spiritual gravity.
And the core argument is so bold. It basically says that suffering is not a glitch of the system. It's not some cosmic accident. And it's not even a punishment in the way we normally think about it.
So what is it?
It's a structural necessity. It's a required component for a moral universe to even exist.
Okay, so everyone buckle up. We are leaving the forest floor and we're heading up to see the architectural blueprints of reality itself. Let's dive in.
So to really appreciate the solution that's being proposed here, we have to give the problem its due. We can't just wave away the fawn.
No, you can't. And J.R. Ahmed's work, it really acknowledges that right from the start. He lays out what he calls the atheist's stark dilemma. And the whole thing really kicks off with a philosopher named J.L. Mackie.
Mackie, yes, a brilliant, brilliant philosopher. And he's the one who formulated what we now call the logical problem of evil. Sometimes it's called Mackie's trilemma.
Or the sharp blade, which I think is just such a great image. It's like this perfectly honed blade of logic just slicing through the whole argument.
It is. So let's visualize it. Imagine a triangle. Each point of the triangle is a proposition, a statement that, most theists would agree is true.
Okay, so point one, God is omnipotent. He's all-powerful. He can do anything that is logically possible to do.
Correct. That's the first pillar. Point two, God is wholly good, or, omnibenevolent. He is the ultimate source of goodness. He opposes evil. He wants to get rid of suffering.
Got it. All-powerful, all good. And then there's point three.
Evil exists.
And that's it. That's the trap.
That's the trap. Mackie's whole argument is that these three propositions are logically inconsistent. You cannot hold all three of them to be true at the same time without creating a contradiction. It's a closed loop that breaks itself.
So let's walk through that loop. Let's break it down. If God is wholly good, then he wants to stop the fawn from burning.
Right.
I mean, any good person would want to stop that kind of torture if they could.
Of course. If I'm walking past a burning fawn and I have a bucket of water, the good thing to do is to throw the water on it. It's a moral imperative.
Exactly. And if God is omnipotent, he can stop the fawn from burning. He's got the power. He controls the atoms of the fire and the branch and everything else.
He has the bucket of water, so to speak, an infinite bucket.
Point three is a fact of reality. Evil and suffering exist. So the atheist looks at this triangle and says, okay, something here has to give.
Something's got to break. Either God wants to stop the suffering, but he can't. In which case, well, he isn't all-powerful. Maybe he's just a well-meaning but limited spiritual force.
Not really God in the classical sense.
Not at all. Or option two, he can stop it, but he doesn't want to. In which case, he isn't wholly good. Maybe he's indifferent. Or maybe he's even cruel, a cosmic sadist.
Or the third, and for many the most logical, conclusion.
That he simply doesn't exist. The whole concept is a fiction, a story we made up to comfort ourselves. But the hard reality of pain proves that the story is false.
And that's the logical problem. It's clean, it's sharp. It argues that the very definition of God contradicts the world we actually live in.
It's a very tight argument.
Yeah.
But then you have to layer on William Rowe, the guy who gave us the fawn, because he takes it a massive step further.
Yeah, this is where it gets, for me personally, really heavy. Rowe brings in what's called the evidential problem of evil. It's not just that evil exists as a category, it's the amount of it and the specific type of it.
Exactly. It's the gratuity, the pointlessness of so much of it. Rowe's question is fundamentally, is that specific suffering of the fawn necessary for some greater good?
Right. Could God have created a universe where, okay, maybe humans have free will and can hurt each other, but where fawns don't get trapped and burned to death in forest fires for no reason?
It sure seems like he could have. I mean, what greater good is possibly served by that fawn's specific agony?
It's not building character. It's a deer. It's not testing anyone's faith. It's an animal alone in the woods. It just hurts terribly. And then it ends. That's it.
And that is what Rowe labels pointless or gratuitous suffering. His argument is that an omnipotent, all-good being could, and therefore would, prevent that specific instance of agony without losing any corresponding greater good.
The fact that he doesn't, to Rowe, suggests he's either indifferent or, again, non-existent.
And then you zoom out, you look at the scale of it all. The source material uses that phrase, the scale of sorrow. You think about genocides, massive earthquakes, children with cancer. The sheer volume of it feels too vast, too chaotic to be part of any benevolent plan.
It feels less like a plan and more like just noise, random, cruel noise.
So given that challenge, that double-barreled shotgun of the logical and evidential problems, how have theologians traditionally tried to respond?
Well, the classic defense, and one that J.R. Ahmed addresses directly, is the soul-making theodicy.
Slow-making.
The basic idea is that we are here on Earth to build our character, to grow into better beings. We need resistance to grow strong. If the world was a perfect paradise with no challenges, we'd all be, morally and spiritually soft.
The gym analogy. You need to lift the heavy weights of suffering to build your spiritual muscles. You need danger to learn courage. You need loss to learn empathy, and so on.
And it makes a certain kind of sense on the surface, I get it, but our source, drawing on the modern atheist critique, really starts to poke some serious holes in that defense.
The first one is what's called the no-need rebuttal.
Oh, this one is a killer. It's so simple. It basically asks, if God is all-powerful, why does he need to use such brutal, agonizing methods to teach us these lessons?
Right. If the goal is for me to learn courage and you're an omnipotent God, why not just, I don't know, download the virtue of courage directly into my soul?
Like a software update. Click here to install Bravery 2.0.
Exactly. Why do I have to go through the horror of a war zone to get it? Why is agony the required tool for an all-powerful, all-good being? If God is limited to using suffering as his only teaching method, it kind of suggests he's not really omnipotent after all.
It's like a surgeon who says, I can perform this life-saving operation, but only with a rusty saw and no anesthesia. You'd say, well, you're not a very good surgeon then, are you? A better, more powerful being could achieve the same result without the gratuitous pain.
And that leads right into the second major critique, which the source calls the inefficacy of evil.
This is the breaking point argument.
Yes. The soul-making idea assumes that suffering always builds us up, that it's productive. But we all know from our own lives or from history that that's just not true.
No, some suffering doesn't build anything. It annihilates, it crushes.
The source gives the example of the madness that can be induced by torture, or the slow, agonizing death of a child from a painful disease. What virtue is being built there?
Nothing. It often has the opposite effect. It destroys faith. It destroys a person's mind. It shatters families. It doesn't seem like a tool for growth. It seems like a system failure.
So if the whole point of the gym is to make you stronger, but some of the machines are so poorly designed that they cripple or kill you instead, then you have to conclude that the gym owner is either incompetent or malicious.
So that's the position. That's where the empiricist stands. They look out at the burning forest, they listen to the silence after the screams, and they conclude there's no one there, or if there is, he doesn't care about us.
And that is a truly formidable, emotionally and logically powerful argument. J.R. Ahmed does not dismiss it or take it lightly.
Not at all. But now, this is where we make the pivot. We're going to shift gears completely. We're leaving the forest floor of empirical evidence and emotion.
And we're entering the machine, the rationalist counter perspective.
We're going to see how the Quran, at least through the lens of J.R. Ahmed's analysis, attempts to reframe this entire narrative.
And the first thing that you notice, the first thing that struck me in the source material is the tone. It is not apologetic in the slightest.
No, it's not saying, oh, I'm so sorry about all the pain, but here's a comforting thought to make you feel better. It's almost architectural, like you said. It's like an engineer explaining a schematic.
That's the perfect word for it. The source argues that the Quranic worldview doesn't try to explain away suffering or deny it.
Yep.
It promises it. It states it as a fact of existence. And that fundamentally changes the premise of what this life is supposed to be.
Right. I think most of us, whether we're religious or not, we sort of operate on the default assumption that the world is supposed to be a playground or maybe a garden.
Yeah.
And so when we fall down and scrape our knee, we think something has gone terribly wrong.
The system has failed. But the argument here is that this place was never designed to be a garden.
It was designed to be a crucible.
A crucible. A vessel that's used in metallurgy to withstand intense heat, to melt down raw ore and burn away the impurities to get to the pure metal inside.
So it's a place that is, by definition, about extreme heat and pressure.
Let's look at the key verse that the text hinges on. It's from Surah Al-Anbiya, that's chapter 21, verse 35, and it says, "Every soul shall taste death, and we test you with evil and with good as a trial, and to us you will be returned."
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second. We test you with evil and with good. Usually, we think of the bad stuff as the test, the hardship, the pain. But this is saying that good is also a test.
Absolutely. And this is completely central to the framework that Ahmed is building. In this worldview, if you are given immense wealth or perfect health or power and stability, that is not a reward. That's a test.
A test of what?
It's a test of gratitude, a test of stewardship, a test of humility. What do you do with that good fortune? Do you use it to help others? Or do you hoard it and become arrogant? That's the test.
And so on the flip side, the evil, the pain, the loss, the sickness, that's a test of something else.
A test of patience, a test of resilience, a test of perseverance.
So the source calls this a deliberate arena. The world is intentionally designed to be difficult. It's a feature, not a bug.
It is the core feature.
But that just brings us back to the big why, right? Why design a world that's so difficult? It feels like we're back at the no-need argument. Why not just create beings that are already perfected and happy?
Because of what the source calls the necessity of friction.
The necessity of friction. Okay.
The argument is that a life without assay, without being tested or tried, inevitably leads to what he calls stagnation slumber.
Stagnation, just floating.
Think about it in any real-world context. If you remove every single hurdle from a person's life, if there are zero consequences for their actions, if they can never get hurt, never lose, never fail, never be challenged, what happens to their motivation? What happens to their character?
I mean, they would just be blobs, like spiritual jellyfish just floating in a warm sea. There'd be no reason to do anything.
You'd be stagnant. You would never develop resilience or courage or compassion because you'd never be in a situation that required them. The source quotes another verse from Surah Al-Ankabut 29.2. Do the people think that they will be left as they are without being tested?
It's a rhetorical question, obviously. It's asking, do you really think you can claim to have faith, or to be a good person, or to be strong, if that claim has never once been stress tested by reality?
Exactly. The claim is meaningless without the test. The catalyst for the human spirit to ignite is friction. Every form of evolution we know, whether it's biological or spiritual, requires pressure. It requires adversity.
Without the threat of predators, animals don't learn to run fast. Without the challenge of a puzzle, a mind doesn't get sharper.
Without a moral dilemma, you don't actually make a moral choice. You're just coasting.
So, okay, if God had just downloaded all the virtues into us, as the atheist critique suggests, we wouldn't be free agents making choices.
We'd be incredibly well-programmed robots. We'd be puppets. But we wouldn't be alive in a meaningful moral sense. The source's argument is that we wouldn't be the authors of our own spiritual story.
And that idea of authorship, of agency, that brings us to the real core of this rationalist argument, doesn't it?
It does. It brings us to the system of laws.
This is the part that, I'll be honest, kind of blew my mind a little. This whole concept of spiritual gravity.
Yes. This is where we need to introduce the Quranic concept of qaida e quadrat.
Okay, break that down for me. Qaida e quadrat. What does that translate to?
It means something like divine legislation or the established laws of the Almighty. The core idea, as presented by Ahmed, is that God's primary role in the universe is not that of a constant hands-on micromanager.
So he's not sitting up there every morning deciding, okay, today I'm going to make this person trip on the sidewalk and I'm going to let this other person win the lottery.
He's not randomly moving the pieces on the chessboard day to day. No, he is a legislator. He has designed and established immutable, universal laws that govern the operation of the cosmos. And we already accept this without question in the realm of physics.
Right, gravity.
Gravity is the perfect analogy. If you decide to ignore the law of gravity and walk off the edge of a tall building, you will fall. You will hit the pavement. You will almost certainly suffer terribly and die.
Okay, yes.
Now, as you're falling, or as you're lying there on the ground, do you look up at the sky and scream, God, why are you personally punishing me right now? Why are you so cruel as to make me fall?
No, of course not. That would be absurd. You'd say, I broke a fundamental law of physics, and this is the direct, predictable consequence.
Precisely. The fall isn't a capricious, arbitrary punishment from a moody deity. It is the natural, unavoidable consequence of the law. The law itself is neutral. It's consistent. It applies to everyone, everywhere, all the time.
And the source is arguing that this exact same principle applies to the moral and social realm.
Yes, that is the entire concept of spiritual gravity. The Quran, in this reading, presents a universe where moral laws are just as real, just as binding, and just as consequential as physical laws.
So give me an example. How does that play out?
Okay, so let's say a society is built on a law of exploitation and greed. A divine law might be something like ensure economic justice, care for the poor. If a society ignores that law and allows massive inequality, lets the poor starve, while a tiny elite hoards all the wealth, what happens?
Well, you get social unrest, you get crime, desperation, riots, maybe even a violent revolution.
Exactly. And when that revolution happens and there's widespread suffering and chaos, this framework says that it's not God reaching down from the heavens and zapping that society with a punishment ray.
It's just gravity.
It's just spiritual gravity. It's the natural, predictable output of the societal inputs. It's the harvest of the choices that were freely sown. The system is functioning perfectly, not breaking down.
The source used a specific term for this, the tawhid of legislation.
Tawhid is a core Islamic concept. It usually means the oneness of God. But here, Ahmed applies it to mean the oneness of the source of law. The argument is that God designed the one true operating system for human flourishing. And when we try to run our own shoddy, bug-filled code on top of it, code based on tribalism or racism or unfettered greed, the system crashes.
And the crash is the suffering. The suffering is the error message.
The crash is the diagnostic signal. It's the universe's feedback loop telling us that we have broken a fundamental law of our own nature.
This sounds a lot like the philosophy of the Mutazili school that's mentioned in the book.
Ah, yes. The Mutazili, they are central to J.R. Ahmed's analysis. They were a school of Islamic theology way back in the 8th to 10th centuries, and they were known as the arch-rationalists. Their entire theology was built on logic and reason.
And what was their main focus, their main beef?
Their absolute, non-negotiable starting point was the concept of adil divine justice. For them, it was logically impossible for a perfect God to be unjust. Justice is part of his essence. Therefore, they concluded, God cannot and does not create evil for its own sake. He cannot be the author of injustice.
Okay, so if evil exists, and it does, but it didn't come directly from a good God, where does it come from?
It comes from the free agents operating within the system that God created.
It comes from us.
It comes from us. This is where human authorship becomes the crucial link in the chain. The book quotes a staggering verse from the Quran, Surah An-Nisa 4.79. Whatever of good reaches you is from Allah, but whatever of evil befalls you is from yourself.
Wow. That's a heavy, heavy statement. From yourself, it pulls no punches.
It places the weight of moral responsibility squarely on human shoulders. The Mutazili argument, which Ahmed channels, is that for free will to be real, it must have real consequences. If I'm truly free to drive my car, I must also be free to crash it into a wall.
And if God reached in and prevented every single car crash every time,
then I wouldn't really be driving, would I? I'd be a passenger on a tightly controlled ride at an amusement park. The illusion of a steering wheel, but no actual control.
So to remove the consequence, to remove the potential for suffering, is to remove the reality of the choice itself.
Exactly. The suffering is the receipt. It's the proof that the transaction of free will was real and meaningful.
Okay. I think I'm with you on the human caused suffering. If I start a war, people will suffer. That's cause and effect. That's spiritual gravity. But we have to go back to the forest.
The fawn. It always comes back to the fawn.
The fawn didn't break any moral laws. The fawn wasn't oppressing the poor or hoarding wealth. It was an innocent creature that got hit by lightning and burned to death. How does spiritual gravity or human authorship explain that? Or what about a baby born with a terrible genetic disease?
This is the exact point where the argument has to evolve. This is where we hit what the source calls the epistemic limit.
Epistemic, that relates to
Right.
knowledge, right? The limits of what we can know.
Precisely. The rationalist argument, as laid out by Ahmed, fully acknowledges this category of suffering. While a huge portion of the world's pain is the direct or indirect result of human choices, wars, famines from resource mismanagement, pollution, etc., there absolutely remains a category of suffering that seems natural, random, or just plain unfair.
The act of God stuff, as an insurance policy would call it.
Right, and J.R. Ahmed's work pivots here to a powerful analogy. He calls it the tapestry.
Okay, laid out for me, the tapestry.
Imagine you're looking at a vast, incredibly detailed digital photograph on a screen, but you're zoomed in so close, so incredibly close, that all you can see is one single pixel.
Okay, I'm just seeing a tiny square of color.
And let's say that one pixel you're looking at is just black, a dark, muddy, ugly black. From your limited perspective, you might say, this is a terrible picture. It's just an ugly black square. Why would the artist put this pointless, ugly thing here?
But if I zoom out?
If you could zoom out, you might see that the single black pixel you were looking at is the pupil of an eye in a magnificent, breathtaking portrait of a loved one. You'd see that the black pixel wasn't ugly or pointless at all. It was absolutely necessary for the beauty of the whole image to exist.
So the argument is, we are permanently stuck looking at the single pixel.
We are temporal beings trapped in a linear experience of time. We see a tiny snapshot. We see the fawn dying. We see the child who is sick. And from our limited vantage point, we perceive it as pointless, as a black pixel, because we lack the data. We cannot see the whole tapestry of before and after and all the infinite connections that single event has to everything else.
So just because we can't see the purpose in a moment of suffering, that doesn't logically mean that a purpose is absent.
Exactly. It only signals the limit of our own perception, not the absence of a divine plan or God's arbitrariness. And this connects directly to the concept of the long game.
The long game.
The source material repeatedly frames this worldly life as a prelude, brief and small. It's just the first 5 minutes of the movie. If you judge the justice and meaning of a complex film based only on the opening scene, you'll almost certainly get it wrong. You might think the villain has won. You have to watch the whole thing to understand how everything fits together.
In this theological framework, the whole film explicitly includes the hereafter.
It has to. This is where we get to the idea of justice deferred. The Mutazili view, and this is a very specific and fascinating part of their theology, is that all innocent suffering, including that of the fawn, is subject to divine recompense.
Wait, are you serious? They included animals in this calculation?
Yes. For the Mutazili rationalists, the justice of God had to be perfect and absolute. So their argument was that any pain suffered by any innocent creature in this limited realm is recorded as a debt on the part of the Creator. And because God is perfectly just, that debt must be repaid.
Repaid how?
Through eternal reward and bliss in the hereafter. The cosmic equation is only fully balanced when you view it across the entire timeline of infinity, not just within the tiny, fleeting snapshot of a physical lifespan.
So the fawn's agony isn't the end of its story. It's a temporary state that is somehow more than compensated for later on.
That is the argument, that God's perfect goodness and justice ensure that no creature is ultimately shortchanged in the grand scheme of things. We just don't get to see the transaction clearing because it happens off stage in the next act of existence.
You know, that definitely changes the calculus. If this life is just 70 or 80 years for us, or 5 agonizing minutes for the fawn, and the next life is literally eternal, the math shifts dramatically.
It shifts everything. The perceived injustice becomes a temporary loan that is repaid with infinite interest. And this understanding brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, a redefinition of what worship even means.
Ibadah.
Ibadah, yeah. Usually translated as worship. And when people hear that, they think of rituals, prayer rugs, chanting, temples, specific ceremonies.
Right, the outward forms.
But the source argues that in this framework, the truest definition of ibadah is ethical obedience to the law. It means aligning your life, your choices, and your society with the qaida-i quadrat, with the immutable laws of spiritual and social physics that God has laid down.
So worship isn't just about bowing down in a specific direction. It's about respecting gravity, both the physical kind and the moral kind. It's about building a just society, being honest, caring for the vulnerable.
Yes. And if you see worship that way, then hardship and suffering take on a new role. They act as a diagnostic.
A diagnostic tool, like a check engine light in your car.
That is the perfect analogy. The book references another verse, Surah Al-Baqarah 2.155, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits.
And the source makes a point of saying these things aren't interruptions to God's plan. They are the plan.
They are the diagnostic tools. They are the dashboard warnings. If your society is experiencing widespread fear, it's a diagnostic signal that you are failing to establish justice and security. If there is hunger, it's a sign that you are failing in your duty to distribute resources equitably. The suffering is the feedback loop telling the human authors, you need to fix your code. You have strayed from the optimal operating system.
It's an empowering way to look at it. It completely removes the sense of victimhood. It's not, oh, poor me, God is hitting me with suffering. It's, okay, the dashboard is lighting up. What law have we broken? What do we need to fix?
What do we need to fix? According to this framework, that is the central question of our existence inside the crucible.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this all up. Let's synthesize. We started in that dark, lonely forest. We felt the emotional weight of the fawn, and we looked at the atheist's sharp blade, the cold, hard logic that says you can't have a good God and a burning fawn in the same universe.
A very powerful case. And we countered it not with an emotional appeal, but with the rationalist's crucible. The idea that this world isn't a paradise gone wrong, but a purpose-built arena designed for the testing and evolution of the soul.
We moved from focusing on the pain itself to looking at the awe-inspiring, almost terrifying architecture of divine law, the idea of spiritual gravity, that we are the authors of so much of our own suffering through the choices we make both as individuals and as societies.
And that the suffering we can't explain, the suffering that the truly innocent, like the fawn, is a function of our limited vision. We're seeing one black pixel in a divine tapestry, a tapestry that is ultimately balanced by an infinite justice in the long game.
So the final verdict from this perspective seems to be that suffering isn't evidence of an absent or cruel God. It's actually evidence of a rigorous, serious, law-based environment.
Rigorous environment. I heard someone once say this life is a gym, not a spa, and I think that perfectly captures it.
A gym, not a spa. I love that. The goal isn't comfort. The goal is transformation. The goal is strength.
From stagnation's chains, the soul is set so free. That's a line from the text that sums it up.
So as we close out, here's the thought I want to leave everyone with today. And it's a little provocative, maybe even a little uncomfortable.
Let's hear it.
I want you to really imagine, just for a moment, that the atheist gets their wish, that the critiques are heard and God changes the system. Imagine a world where a benevolent God intervenes every single time something is about to go wrong.
A world with no sharp edges, a perfectly safe world.
Exactly. You reach for a hot stove and God instantly turns off the burner. You're about to drive too fast around a corner and God gently slows down your car. You try to say something cruel to someone you love and God literally silences your voice.
The fawn never gets trapped, the child never gets sick, the branch never falls.
Yeah.
It sounds perfect.
Does it really sound perfect, or does it sound like a beautiful, comfortable, gilded cage?
Oh,
Yeah.
there it is.
If we removed all capacity for suffering, every consequence, every risk, every failure, every loss, would we still be human? Or would we just be well-kept pets in a cosmic zoo? Perfectly safe, well-fed, warm, and utterly, completely stagnant.
We would be incapable of real courage because there'd be no real danger. We'd be incapable of genuine compassion because there'd be no real suffering to witness. We couldn't grow.
So maybe, and this is the final provocative thought, maybe the existence of the crucible itself, the very existence of this dangerous, painful, beautiful, and difficult world is the greatest evidence of the dignity that God has afforded to humanity. He respects us enough to let us fail.
He respects us enough to let us bleed.
And he trusts us enough to learn, to grow, and to eventually fix what we've broken.
That's the deep dive.
Thanks for listening.